Well, thank you for coming tonight to our candidate forum for Congressional District 22. We're fortunate to have all three of the Democratic candidates, the only legitimate candidates running in that race. And we hope to hear a good bit from each of them tonight and see where they are on the issues, and so help us all in making our selection for the next cycle. So before we get started, I want to go over a few things. First, well, I'll tell you who I am. I'm Michael Evans. I'm chair of the Fresno County Democratic Central Committee, and this is our headquarters. Welcome. We're open from 10 to 4 daily. We have two permanent part-time staff. Vicki Vang, raise your hand, Vicki. And Julie Perrin. Julie is actually in Congressional District 4, so she's at an event tonight for one of their candidates up there in the mountains. And so we do have a lot of volunteer opportunities here, and if you have time and interest, there are sign-up forms in the back. And just a little bit of housekeeping. So the restroom is all the way in the back on the right side. You can't miss it when you get to the back. And we do have some refreshments over here. There's water both in the water tank, and I believe there's some water bottle there as well. And I think there's a coffee and hot tea and hot chocolate if you'd like that. So the guidelines for the forum tonight are we're going to give each of the candidates a 2-minute opportunity for an opening statement. Then we're going to do a lightning round, which I'll explain when we get there. And then we're going to go into a series of questions for which the candidates will get 90 seconds each to respond. After we have gone through those set questions, if there is still time permitting, we will take questions from the audience. And you should have been offered an index card when you came in if you're interested in asking a question. And Dee Barnes will collect those from you. Raise your hand, Dee. And the timekeeper will be Tom Hernandez. So what are you going to do when the time's up? Oh,
I'll give him 10. I'll give him 10. I'll say 10, and then.
Okay. Sounds great. And so we're looking to go until no later than 7:45. One of the candidates had indicated the need to leave by then. So that's our goal. So with that, any questions on how we're going to operate this? All right. Then we'll go ahead and move to the opening statements, and we'll start with Phil Arbayo. You have 2 minutes.
Test 1, 2. Yeah, good. Everyone? Okay. Well, thank you for having me, Michael, Fresno County Democratic Party. Appreciate it. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Phil Arbayo. I'm a Democrat. I'm running for Congress here against Devin Nunes, California, 22. I am a lifelong Fresno resident. This is where I grew up in Fresno and the Central Valley. I am Hispanic, Latino. I was raised by a single parent. My mom raised my sister and I. My father battled substance abuse issues our entire life and died when we were very young. So she took on the dual role there with mother and father. Provided for my sister and I. Was able to buy her first home here in Fresno. I graduated from Bullard High School, went on to Fresno City, graduated from Fresno State. And currently my wife and I, Cynthia, right over back there, are raising our 2 young kids, Lourdes, who's 1 year old now, and my son, who's hiding behind that gentleman right there, Andres, is 5 years old, just started kindergarten. I'm an active member in the business community as a board member for the Central California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I have my own business in financial services here in the city of Fresno, and I sit on 2 committees for the city of Fresno as well. And just to let you know why I'm running, this is where I grew up. I'm very proud, and my wife is very proud to be from the Central Valley. This community is a place that has given so much to me and my family that I wanted to give back to them and to this community. We deserve a representative who is invested and who's present in this community.
10 seconds.
And that is why I'm running, is to give back to my community, to let people know that there is an alternative to our current representative. And that's pretty much about me, since I only have 10 seconds left. So thank you very much.
All right, hello everybody. Thank you very much for coming here and showing up and showing the support that you have in removing Devin Nunes from office. This is amazing. And thank you, Fresno Central Committee, or Democratic Central Committee, for hosting this event. Phil and Dari, thank you for being here. This is amazing to have this. Well, I ran for this same seat last time around. And being an executive of nonprofit healthcare centers from Fresno all the way to Sacramento for over 100,000 patient lives, where we've done over 1 million patient encounters, I ran last time based off of healthcare. But as I began walking the different neighborhoods, getting out to places like East Orosi, and finding the problems that people are experiencing with their drinking water, not being able to drink the water that come out of their tap, or not being able to pour the water that was delivered to them because they were unable physically to pour a 5-gallon jug of water. All of these issues that I faced, and I talked to many residents last time around, like individuals who are afraid of being deported, who have now, some of them, been deported. And I can't stand for a lot of the un-American policies that have been put into place, the activities that this administration is doing, while our current congressman is staying silent. We don't have a choice in what is being done because he's not communicating to us. We are not having, and we have not been invited to have a seat at the table. And it's time to turn that around. It is time for us to have a seat at the table. It's time for all of us to get together, flip this district, so that every single person can be included in the conversation to address these issues like water, issues like education, healthcare, climate change. It is important. We all want to fight for these things in this room, and the only way we're going to be able to do that is to have a representative that cares, that listens, that is inviting. My office will always be open to all of you.
Good.
I always encourage everyone to have open communication, and I hope by the end of this forum here today that I'll be able to earn your trust, your support, your vote, and have you join the team. Thank you very much.
Good evening, and thank you for being here. My name is Dari Rizvani. I'm a small business owner, accountant, and proud Democrat to be running for the Central Valley in Congress. I grew up in a working class family that taught me that hard work and dedication were recipes for success. When I was 19 years old, I lived in a studio apartment with my father right across the street from Bulldog Stadium, where we could open the window and listen to the Bulldog games together. It was here that we started an automotive repair shop together that I ultimately took full responsibility of after he passed away from stage 4 lung cancer. During that time, I put myself through community college and graduated with a degree in accounting from Fresno State University. Subsequently, I took a job at PricewaterhouseCoopers, the world's largest accounting and finance firm, which I did in tandem with managing and maintaining the shop here in Fresno. Ultimately, I gave that job up about 6 months ago when I was sitting at a client. I was watching the news, had it on in the background, and it was the 7th child that had passed away in a detention center. Hearing these things are profoundly un-American, and actually they reminded me of some of the stories that my father would tell me about his immigration story to the United States, moving country to country, trying to find a place that he called home after the Iranian Revolution. I loved my career, but ultimately it was this office that I felt the call to come back. Seeing the things that this nation are going through, I could no longer stand complacent. We have children being separated from their parents at the border. We have a climate issue that is not going away, and neither side of the aisle is working hard enough to combat. And lastly, we have a broken healthcare system. We have people that are rationing insulin right now. That is not the America that I stand for. As a representative of this area, you can guarantee that I will fight for each and every one of you.
10 seconds.
I came back to fight for environmental justice, immigration reform, and Medicare for all. And I want to thank the host, Michael Evans, my fellow candidates, and each and every one of you for being here, because I think you all understand the importance of this office. Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to start with the lightning round, and let me explain how this is going to go. So we're just going to go through a list of issues, and you can state whether you support, oppose, or prefer to abstain. And then we'll give each of you 90 seconds at the end of this if you want to clarify any of your responses. So we don't have to pass the mic back and forth on this. I would just state your position loudly. Okay? So is everybody clear what we're doing?
Yep. How are you doing it?
Why don't we come from you?
Okay.
Yeah. We'll start with
Are you
Dari.
going to do all of them or one and then go down? Or
Yeah, I'll do one, then Dari, Bobby, Phil, then the next one, Dari, Bobby, Phil. Okay?
And then Michael.
Yes.
At 90 seconds for the whole all three of them? Or?
No, that starts when we get done with
Oh, okay.
the lightning round. All right. So again, support, oppose, abstain. Ban assault weapons.
support.
Support. Support.
Ban fracking.
Support.
Support. Support.
Ban all pesticides that are harmful to humans.
That are harmful to humans. Support.
Support. Support.
Black Lives Matter.
Every day, all day.
Support. Support.
Charter schools.
Do not support for-profit charter schools.
No. I'm going to abstain.
Continued funding for high-speed rail in the Central Valley.
Support.
Support. Support.
DACA.
Support.
Support. Yeah, support.
Debt relief for student loans.
Support.
Support. Please, yes.
The Equality Act.
Say that again.
Equality Act.
Support.
Support. Support.
Federal funding for Planned Parenthood.
Support.
Support. Support.
Federal minimum wage of at least $15 an hour.
Support. It doesn't go far enough.
Support. Support.
Getting our troops out of Iraq and Afghanistan.
Support.
Support. Support.
Green New Deal.
Support.
Support. Abstain.
Medicare for all.
Support.
Support. Abstain.
Nuclear power.
Do not support.
Support. Abstain.
Overturn Citizens United.
Support.
Support. Support.
The Paris Agreement.
Support.
Support. Support.
President Trump's tariffs/trade war.
Do not support.
No. Do not support.
Private prisons.
Do not support.
Do not support. Do not support.
Reinstate net neutrality.
Support.
I support. Support.
Reparations.
Support.
Support. Support.
Right to work laws.
Do not support.
Do not support. Do not support.
Same-sex marriage.
Support.
Support. Support.
Social Security.
Support.
Support. Support.
Universal health care.
Yeah, Medicare for all.
Support. Abstain.
A woman's right to choose.
Absolutely.
Support. Support.
Okay. All right, now we'll give each of you 90 seconds if you want to clarify any of your responses, and we'll start with Dari. 90 seconds each.
I believe I was pretty clear on all my answers. I don't have anything to clarify.
Yeah, absolutely. I think anybody that we put in office needs to really support healthcare for everybody. This is a big thing that I ran for last time, and I truly believe in my whole heart that everyone deserves access to healthcare. If this is a question later, I guess I get another time to say. But the very truth of the matter of the fact is this: that everyone deserves to get healthcare. It is much cheaper and economic feasible by giving and providing everyone with healthcare. And anybody we put in office cannot be afraid to say that everyone should get healthcare. At the very minimum, universal healthcare. Medicare for all is the best plan that I see on the table. It is the one that makes the most sense. It's something that takes for some folks to truly understand and get in the weeds, and I can do that with a lot of folks. I've spent a lot of time last campaign and this campaign convincing folks and talking to people through this. I've had an online town hall about this, and it's something that I'm not afraid of, and we have to continue to do that. When we talk about debt relief, DACA was the other thing. This is something that's kind of gone silent. I think we need to come back and really work on immigration reform. There's a lot of low-hanging fruit things that we just need to fix. And DACA is something, as a promise that we have made to certain individuals in this country, and we should just, we should continue the program with a clear pathway to citizenship, and make this work and stop the idea of criminalizing immigration, period.
Good.
You good? Okay.
I'm not sure if I was
Just wanna make sure you're good.
That was less than 90 seconds.
That's great. Okay, so yeah, I just want to clarify a few of my answers on healthcare. I believe in the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare. I believe that as a representative of the district, we need to protect the Affordable Care Act. Right now, it's constantly under attack. We have a representative who has currently voted multiple times to take away healthcare for millions of Americans and tens of thousands of people here in the district. We cannot take another hill immediately until we protect the Affordable Care Act. Once I am in Congress, I am willing to look at whatever legislation comes to when it comes to expanding healthcare, universal healthcare, Medicare for all. But right now, what my job would be is to protect the Affordable Care Act. I believe in the Affordable Care Act. Obviously, it needs to be fixed or expanded, but that's what I believe. And I think as a representative of this district, it is my job to protect those who already have health care through Obamacare and or otherwise would have a trouble getting health care through because of certain pre-existing conditions. When it comes to just to clarify on the Green New Deal, I believe in the spirit of the Green New Deal. I think it is I love that those in Congress have brought it to the table, that conversation. But unfortunately, right now, the Green New Deal is not a hard piece of legislation.
10 seconds.
And when I get to Congress, I will obviously look, should it become a piece of legislation, into every aspect of the Green New Deal.
Okay, thank you very much. So do we need the microphone for the folks? Do you think? Everybody, you can hear them in the back just fine? You can hear me in the back just fine. Okay. All right, so we've got, so let's use the mic. All right, so now we're going to go into the questions. Again, you'll have 90 seconds each. And so for the first one, I'm going to go Phil, Bobby, and Dari. And then the next one, we're going to go, Bobby, Phil, or excuse me, Bobby, Dari, and Phil. So we'll always be coming in the same direction, but we'll loop it around. All right, does that make sense?
Seems like a kind of difficult way to do it. But.
Yeah. Well, would it be easier just to go the same way every time?
Well, I was going to say, or zigzag back, then if he gets first, so that way Bobby.
Well, we can do that.
Advantageous spot, but.
That's fine. We'll do it that way then. Are you okay with that, Bobby? That means you'll never go first.
I'm kind of used to that. So
All right.
Move your seat to there.
Okay. We'll keep it simple then. All right, so the first question is, what is your priority, number one, for your congressional district, and number two, for the nation as a whole? So we'll start with Phil Arbaya. And we did want to use the mic.
Okay. Okay, there you go. So I think this is a question that's going to cover both because I think that we've seen what the most important question is in the nation right now, and that is healthcare. And as I've stated already, I believe in the Affordable Care Act. I will make sure that that is my top priority to protect it for, from being under attack by the party, by the other side, by the GOP. We have lawsuits right now, once again going through the courts to strip people of health care. That is a national issue. It is also an issue in our district. So again, I believe in the Affordable Care Act. I want to look at fixing it, expanding it, and making sure that every American has access to affordable health care. I believe that health care is a right. However, I think that as a person who is going to be elected to Congress, that we need to do what we need to do in protecting what we already have, and then looking at our other options once we hopefully take back the White House and the Senate to expand health care for everyone.
something that does cover the entire nation in here. I know, say it's kind of obvious. Healthcare. Healthcare is very important, as I said earlier. We need to ensure that everyone has healthcare. The current system of ACA doesn't cover everybody. There are people who are being missed by this system. And every single month, I get a roster of patients who fall off because maybe they got a job that paid them just a little bit too much. But where they went doesn't provide them with healthcare, so they don't have healthcare. And so these people have an inconsistency of providers, inconsistency of healthcare, that we have to fix it. So the ACA is not sufficient, and we need to move to a plan, and we need to move to a plan quickly. And that's why Congress needs someone who has any experience in healthcare there. Less than 5% of Congress has any experience, and I believe it's less than 1% has any experience in implementation and health administration. That kind of experience is necessary there. The next thing that I would like to do is to be able to leverage the programs that are already there to help out our communities, our rural communities. When you look at the appropriations, there's programs, without getting into the weeds, the 10, 20, 30, to be able to get our communities here that qualify it. And we get our fair share to help us in water, help us build the right educational infrastructure that we need, like broadband in our rural areas. So there's a lot of things that we need to do to get us to equal level playing fields that other areas have in this state and in this country, and we can do that. And I have already started conversations with other congressional members to be able to do this, and that's very important.
You know, I'm gonna say 15 seconds before I give you guys a little more time, because you guys have been really good on time.
So I don't want to minimize the importance of healthcare, but without an earth, healthcare is kind of takes a back seat, right? The earth is literally on fire. We're seeing what's happening in the Amazon. We're seeing that, you know, there's another right-wing president in Brazil that is refusing to take aid. The Amazon provides 20% of the oxygen that we breathe. If we're not taking care of the earth, everything else is not important because ultimately it'll cease to exist. This is an existential crisis, and I don't want to sound like some millennial that's on a soapbox, but you gave a millennial a soapbox, and I'm going to continue to talk about the climate crisis that we're in, specifically because it does have healthcare impact, specifically here in the Central Valley. We have one of the highest asthma rates in the entire nation, which then directly ties into the fact that we need a Medicare for all system. We also have one of the densest populations of seniors in the nation. And with that, we have seniors on fixed income that can no longer afford their pharmaceuticals. These two things combined, I believe, are extremely important and critical for the state of the United States to get out of this abysmal situation that we're in. But I also think it's worth touching on the student loan debt. We have 44.5 million Americans that pay an average of $400 a month for student loans. Wiping that clean would immediately add $18 billion into the economy.
15.
You know, having said that, abolishing all student debt would only lose about 18,000 jobs, but like I said, it would impact the lives of 44.5 million Americans.
Okay, the next question. What measures would you support to combat climate change?
So, as I stated in the lightning round, I am a proponent of the Green New Deal, but ultimately that's an infrastructure deal that will provide jobs for the next 10 to 15 years. It will reduce our dependency on fossil fuels, but ultimately climate change is something that we're all going to have to buy in together. The uncomfortable part is the amount of change that it's calling for. It essentially is going to upend life as we know it, because we are going to need things like high-speed rails. We are going to have to reduce our dependencies on driving everywhere, things along those lines. And another thing that I think we need to start talking about is plastics. My personal opinion is that we need an immediate ban on all plastics, which would then drive the companies that are producing all of these plastics to treat it as a commodity instead of something that they can just create and throw away. While doing that, that would also drive innovation in the tech industry to come up with new facets of using and recycling this plastic, thus creating new industries.
So one of the first things that we have to do is make sure we fund the EPA. We need to stop the defunding that's happening, the removal of the importance behind the EPA. And then also is to continue to back the policies that are already there. Things like getting off of fossil fuels and moving towards renewable energies by certain times. Backing and supporting the things where we're going to start looking into solar, looking more into wind energy and all the renewable fuels that are there. There's some good plans there. They're actually achievable. When I first got into the campaign last time, I thought that it wasn't. And when you look at it, the technology is there, the push is there, and I believe the drive within our communities are really there. So we have to start looking at and getting it that way. And then continue to move the policies, like right now, work with the other countries on this one. Right now, the IMO, International Maritime Organization, has put something in for 2020 where bunker fuel is going to go from 3.5% sulfur down to 0.5% sulfur. This is going to make a huge decrease in the sulfur pollution that we have in our environments. Activities like this we have to support, we have to push. In 2020, there will be a fight back. We have to show that no, it's worth it for us to do this. We have to continue forward and ensure that we hold people accountable and all of our diesel ships out there, that they follow through with this too. So we need to do this and continue to work on this. And we also need to continue pounding down on the rest of our congressional members, who at that time will be my peers, to support the vision behind the resolution of a Green New Deal.
Yeah, on the issue of climate change, I just want to let everyone know that I think we all grew up here in the Central Valley. This has some of the worst air quality in the entire nation. I grew up with asthma, as I'm sure a lot of you did here in the Central Valley as well. You know, this is a personal issue for me. You know, as I have two kids who are going to grow up in the Central Valley. You know, we have to be aware every day of the air quality. Is he going to be able to go out for recess? Can we go outside and play in the backyard? This is a big deal here in the Central Valley, and I believe in the science of climate change. We have a congressman who has stated that he believes that climate change is a hoax. He does not believe in the science behind climate change. So first of all, I believe in the science of climate change, and as the representative here for the Central Valley, I will do and I will fight for lowering emissions here in the Central Valley, providing funds for the infrastructure that we need when it comes to supporting or stormwater, right? Stormwater storage. That's what we need. We need a congressman who, first of all, just believes that this is happening in climate change. And unfortunately, we do have a congressman right now who has denied the science behind climate change. It will affect our economy, our agricultural economy, which will then trickle down to our working economy.
Thank you.
So how would you address the Trump-induced border crisis and overall immigration reform?
In our Central Valley, we are a diverse Central Valley because of our immigration population. My family is an immigrant family. My grandparents came from Mexico at an early age because they wanted and they needed to provide a better life for their families in Mexico. My grandma worked since a teenager, when she was a teenager in the garment district in downtown LA. She came over here, and her parents, or her family sent her over here for a better life. And that's all that we want. And that's all what immigrants that are coming over from dire situations in Central America, that's what they want. They just want a better life. And my grandma was able to provide a better life for my mom, and my mom vice versa, or my mom also was able to provide a better life for me, where I'm able to now own my own small business, raise my family here in the Central Valley, and run for Congress. So that is all that we want. You know, the immigrant community is not raising your drug prices, right? They're not stealing your jobs. All they want to do is provide for a better life for their family, and the United States and the American dream offers them that opportunity.
So my family and my entire Hmong community took refuge in this country. I'm getting this sign from my wife to hold the microphone far away. Is it okay?
That's good.
So anyways, the truth is this. We need to treat people with humanity. Separating families, that's wrong. Putting people in cages, that's wrong. Putting hundreds of people in a place that's fit for 50, that's wrong. It should be criminal to do things like that. And I believe it is criminal to do things like that. And so the very first step that we have to take is to make sure there's humane treatment, but but also remove the laws that are criminalizing asylum seekers. When you look at it in the code of 1325, where it says if you cross over illegally, you are immediately a criminal punishable up to 6 months, and the second time it's up to 2 years. Look, when my Hmong community took refuge in America, we had to swim illegally across the river to go into Thailand illegally. This is part of the asylum seeking and refugee seeking process. We cannot make that a criminal effort. This is what's there. It's because we are running away from persecution, and we can't hold people in detainment because of that. The second thing, also, so we need to treat everyone fairly, and we need to make sure there's enough funding to handle the backlog of 733,000 things that have to go through the courts right now. We have a huge backlog. Let's not put them in detention facilities. Let's hear their cases out, and let's treat them fairly. That's what we need to do.
Just to clarify, the question was what would we do to address it? Yeah. Okay, so first things first, we need to allocate enough judges and resources to the southern border so that these asylum seekers can actually be given their due process. I know that is a big issue. That was prior to this Trump administration. The second thing being, we need a root cause analysis, right? Why are these asylum seekers coming to the country? What is happening in their countries that is driving the migration north? And we know that answer. We know partly gang violence. We need to take account for our part in that. 50% of the guns that are traceable in Mexico and Central America can be traced to the United States of America. That comes from our lax gun laws, right? Then the other thing, Venezuela. We can't keep putting sanctions on poor countries. Governments that do not care about their people are not going to care if the pressure on the general society is getting greater and greater. So they have no choice but to come to the greatest country on earth, the United States. So there's a couple things, right? And as a first-generation American myself, I mean, this is, we've seen photos of children being separated from their families at the border with the United States flag flying behind it. That's absolutely abysmal and downright un-American. So having said that, I mean, look, this is something that I take extremely personal, and that's why I am leading a trip to the border in mid-September to help the Minority Humanitarian Foundation give help and resources to asylum seekers there. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So what are your priorities relative to water in the Central Valley?
First things first, I think we were all familiar with the drought that we just got out of the last 10 years. I like to joke and say I didn't see rain in my entire 20s. We need to build water storage. I think there are plenty of plans that we already have in place that would just extend the dams that we already have. I believe that 2 of them have already been approved by the Sierra Club. So I think that those should be moved forward. But ultimately, the only way that we can do this is starting to reduce the farming land that we have, which I believe has already started to happen. I'm kind of stealing a little bit from Mark's book, The Drump Land, but ultimately we have a lot of farmland that is being produced on land that has no right to be having things grown on it. And I think that can directly tie into climate change, because we can ultimately be a resource for renewable energy here in the district, right? So that's my answer.
So, water is a very important issue to me. Like I said, we need to make sure that it's safe. What's coming out of the tap water, you should be able to drink. That's one of the first things that we have to do, is to make sure that the water that folks are getting are safe. And that leads to sometimes less fertilizer out there. What that leads to sometimes is making sure that we don't put too much chlorpyrifos all over the place and spray people like cucarachas. It's very important that we handle this. On top of that, we also have to make sure that we reduce, prevent, and if we can, stop the sale of water for profit in all different ways. There's no reason why someone should be able to come in their own backyard, buy a little piece of land, pump all that water, take away all the water from our aquifers, and sell it for profit and take it away from us. We have to do our very best to address that issue right there. I think the water belongs to the people in the Central Valley. That's how it started a long time ago. We lost track of that. We need to reclaim that back. That water belongs to the people who live here, and not to the corporations that are in Los Angeles and the corporations that are out all over the country, and even outside of this country. It belongs to all of us that live here in the Central Valley. And we have to do the very best now to replenish our aquifers. So any kind of plan that we come up with, must be able to replenish the aquifers. And the dam that was going to go up there, I was fully against it, and I think that we can see that it was not going to be profitable not good for us, but profitable for the energy companies that are out there. That's a no-no. Water belongs to us, we need it. And there are a lot of other plans. If we can get in the weeds, I would talk about it, but since my time is up, those are the things.
The issue of water in the Central Valley is twofold, right? It's agricultural and down to the communities. The first thing is obviously water storage and infrastructure. That's the one thing one of the most important things that we need to push for here in the Central Valley when it comes to allocating funds on the federal level to provide those infrastructures that are needed to store water and allocate water properly to the agricultural communities. On the water infrastructure side, that also goes down to the communities though, and I want to commend our current governor Gavin Newsom and signing the Clean Water Act that was proposed by our current senator here, Hurtado. That had the signatures of Congressman Harder, Congressman Costa, and the one name missing was our Congressman Devin Nunes. He did not sign to encourage that that piece of legislation be signed for his communities in the 22nd district. So again, I will be a champion for water issues, for agriculture, for communities to receive safe and clean drinking water and make sure that the agricultural communities have the water necessary, storage-wise, allocation-wise, to provide not only the nation but the world the crops that are needed.
Thank you. Okay, so what plan or plans would you support to achieve universal health care?
Well, again, I am a supporter of Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act. I think that's what we need to start with in protecting. It is my position is in order to get to a point, in order to get to the point where we are talking about the issues of Medicare for all or universal health care, we need to take out our current Congressman Devin Nunes, who again has voted multiple times to take away people's health care. So until we defeat Devin Nunes, this is a moot subject here in the Central Valley because we need to defeat him. In order to do that, we need to protect what we have, and that is the Affordable Care Act. We need to fix it. We need to expand it. We need to encourage our current Congress to do so. And then once I am elected to office, I will take a look at any plan that provides more health care to more Americans. And I'm sure at some point we will probably get to a process where we're getting, universal health care and Medicare. But first thing is first is getting rid of Devin Nunes and protecting the Affordable Care Act.
So my plan to make sure that we have universal health care for everybody is, one, to get elected. That's kind of the first step and the reason why I ran last time, and that's why I'm running again. We got to do our very best to show folks that it is the best thing to do to take care of everybody who's here in America. It's absolutely the wrong system that we have now, and that's going to include the Affordable Care Act. When we talk about expanding the Affordable Care Act, that means expanding it to expanding the services to the people that the Affordable Care Act does not cover. Okay? So when we look at the cost of the Affordable Care Act right now, the cost of the Affordable Care Act is to include all of those folks who don't have insurance into the ER rooms. The money of uncovered people in the ER rooms. Basically, from my experience, the dollars that go in to cover those folks who don't have it would already cover absolutely everybody that is living in this country right now. If you just take the population and do the math, $11,000 per person, that's about what it covers people in America. Take that times the population, is exactly what we already spent. We don't have to cut anything, any other programs. We just have to continue spending what we are spending. Everybody will be covered. And that is what we have to do. So the first step is getting people into Congress who actually understand healthcare.
15.
And then someone who is going to push for it and fight for it and honestly have the strength to fight against those private industries that are trying to stop this and profit from our problems. Thank you.
I don't think we have the time left to fix the ACA. Look, we're going to take back Senate and we're going to take back the presidency here in November 2020. We will have the votes. We can pass a Medicare for all. What's happened to the Affordable Care Act is beyond saving at this point. If we're going to do something, I'm sick of this incremental change. Let's actually create the country that we want and that we need. For far too long, we've been told, oh, that's not doable because it's too expensive. That's not doable, you just don't understand it. Well, look, we can do it, and I'm sick of being told that we can't. For far too long, specifically in the healthcare industry, I mean, how much money from the lobbyists have come and construed what is actually happening? I mean, look at what happened to the ACA. These premiums are specifically because they weren't making enough money, right? So when you have a privatized insurance system, their job is to make money off of denying you health care. That is not a system that we can save. There is no incremental change that we can make that all of a sudden makes that okay. That's a broken system. And look, these aren't politics, these are morals. You shouldn't have to go through the fear of losing your house because you just paid for life-saving prescription medication.
15.
And let's talk about the people with chronic illnesses. I mean, before the ACA, which did wonders at the time, people were losing everything they had and dying because they could not get the coverage they need. We have to start looking at each other as human beings and not metrics of economic success.
Okay, thank you. So,
Is that working? Yeah.
It is now.
Okay, so we have two more set questions. So then we'll start taking the questions the audience has submitted. So if you have not already given your cards to Dee, if you're in this area, just pass it over to that side and she'll collect them. And if you're in the back area, raise your hand, Dee. Just get it to her. Do you have some already? Okay. All right, but we have two more before we move to that. And the first one is, what should be done to stop gun violence in our country?
DMV style registry. I believe that is the best answer for what we have. We also need to have an assault weapon buyback program. One of the things I want to mention on the DMV style registry, how many times do we have to see GoFundMe pages after mass shootings? It's wrong, right? If we can't pass a Medicare for all system, can we at least pass some system so that these shooters are held accountable, or at least some industry is held accountable for the countless lives that are being lost or ruined from medical bills? Again, look, we are the only country that has more guns than people. We have 122 guns per 100 people in this country. To act like this is something that we can fix overnight is downright ignorant, right? This is one of the things that I know I just said we can't have incremental change, we need change now. But unfortunately, this is one of the things that, without being that liberal that says, hey, we need to take away all the guns, this is something that we all have to work together to do. And it starts with responsible gun ownership. I mean, look, we're not the only country with guns. Japan has guns. Look at how difficult it is to own one there, though, right? You respect owning a gun when you have to go through this process. Now, when you're here and you can just pop over to Nevada, buy an AK-47, and then come back over here, it's a little bit different, right? And so, look, gun ownership is
15.
is part of the American life at this point. But that doesn't mean that we can't start putting restrictions in. And let's not forget the first 4 words of the Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia, right? I mean, it's not for every Tom, Dick, and Harry to go have an AK-47, right? So that's my answer, thanks.
So, as a hunter, I've grown up with guns, and I have a lot of family members with guns, and I think one of the most important lessons is to be responsible. You have to be responsible and safe gun owner, and if you can't be, you shouldn't have one. And that really starts off with making sure that people who are purchasing guns can handle them. And so we need to make sure we can catch the low-hanging fruit, like things we have here with universal background check. Having a background check right off the bat and having a 10 to 14-day waiting period like we do here in California, that should be a minimal standard all across this country. Nobody should be able to walk into a gun show, walk into a store, for any apparent reason, buy a gun and walk out with the gun. There are a lot of states and cities that actually allow this to happen, and that actually needs to stop. The next thing is, in order to create safe, responsible gun owners, we have to ensure that they're continually taking classes, they're continually doing the right things, and carry a moral of treating that gun as the dangerous, death-killing weapon that it actually is. And you do that by ensuring that, making sure that they buy insurance and be able to get that insurance, making sure that they keep their education on these weapons up to date. We do this in many different areas for people with CCWs. We just need to do it for anyone who purchases a weapon.
15.
And if we get to the point that this does not control any of this stuff, we're gonna have to second guess the real, why do we even have them in the first place then? And that stuff, we have to have that second guess once we get to that point. Thank you.
You know, I guess, no, I might come up with something. You know, my son started school 2 weeks ago. And I'd be lying to say that my wife and I were not concerned about him going to school this year. We saw what Fresno Unified did at his school to narrow the scope of people coming in to drop off their kids. It was a huge change from last year. You know, we saw what happened in Dayton and El Paso and Gilroy. And I'd be lying to say that you know, as we went back to school shopping the week before he went to school, that we weren't thinking about where we need to hide. You know, in this target, should a mass shooter come in? And no parent should have to do that. No parent should have to think about where we are going to hide if there is a mass shooting. You know, my son goes to a dual immersion program here in Fresno Unified, Latino heavy. El Paso was targeted specifically because it was a Latino population. My wife and I are frightened that could happen here at his school because it is a heavily Latino populated school district, or school for that matter. You know,
15.
We need to make sure that we the Senate passes their universal background checks, right? That is sitting on McConnell's doorstep. We need to ban high-capacity magazines and bump stocks. We need to, again, have a ban on assault rifles. Our current representative, Devin Nunes, has a 93% rating from the NRA. That's my time.
You had 5 seconds.
Oh, sorry. I thought that was the date.
No, that was.
Okay. So how will you leverage your position in Congress for local economic development?
That's a interesting issue, obviously. That's something that we can champion for on the federal level when it comes to local economic development. You know, my wife is now a proud union member out at Reedley College, and we see that unions are under attack constantly from this administration. With the proposal of the IRAP, you know, of limiting apprenticeship programs, that is something that, you know, we have met with multiple union leaders here and locals in the Central Valley, and we've seen that they have no access right now to their current representative in Washington. He will not take a meeting with any union members in regards to local economic development, workforce programs, apprenticeship programs. Just having a meeting in a hallway is what they've been relegated to. I want to let them know, and I want to let those who are interested in local economic development, that my office in Washington will be open to have those conversations for workforce development, local development here in the Central Valley.
So there are many communities that are impoverished, a lot of poverty in America. There are programs actually that have set forth to bring funding to those areas. Here in the Central Valley, we haven't gotten our fair share. I sat at a round table the other day with people like Alicio Gamino, with Humberto Gomez Sr., with Esty Sandoval, with TJ Cox. We talked about how we're going to be able to bring the funding here to our rural areas to work on things like education, to work on things like water, pesticides, healthcare. And how we're going to do that is to go to and get money from an existing program that James Clyburn in Appropriations has already put forth. It's called the 10-20-30, where you have 10% of the appropriation funds go to communities that have poverty levels, people living at poverty levels of 20% or more for a projected 30 years. In 1990, we were over 20%, about 21% respectively in the two counties, Tulare and Fresno. In 2000, we were still about 22%. 2010 comes along, we start to jump up to where in 2017, we're at 27 and 28% of our individuals in our communities living at poverty levels. That qualifies us for this program. We need to get it. And let me tell you, Devin Nunes was here for the majority of that large increase to 28%. So that program is there. I'd be able to work with people like TJ Cox and our Central Valley congressional members and all the different leaders and mayors and council members in our communities and fight to get that money here so our communities can do with them what they need to do.
Well, first and foremost, the Congress is a federal position, so the hand that you have over local government is somewhat limited. But what it is it's a leadership position. And with that comes a voice. It would have been very nice if someone like a representative in this area had stopped the building of Amazon, not the building of it, but the tax incentives that came along with it. Never has a tax incentive like that paid dividends back to the community that it came to. It'd be nice that that on a, I guess, federal level or a national level, to have that voice. And we've seen that actually. We saw it happen in New York with AOC calling out Amazon for doing just that. But another thing to address local economic development is we have to talk about the lack of competition in the United States and the fact that our antitrust laws have been, for lack of a better term, completely ignored. When that happens, it creates barriers to entry for startups and for people who want to innovate and create small businesses. We've seen a massive brain drain here in the Central Valley because we don't have these lucrative jobs, right? And so what we need to do is start working with places like the Bay Area and Los Angeles and getting these companies to come here, but also we need to ensure that we have a startup mentality here, and we know that you can create a business that can end up being $1 billion business. Let's see what we have. See what happened over at Bitwise, right? I mean, that is now expanding over to Bakersfield. You know, this area isn't done. That's for sure. We just need to keep the people here.
Thank you. Let me get the next round of questions.
Oh, you're gonna read these?
Yeah.
She was getting ready. There's some tough ones there, guys.
That's my favorite color.
Okay. What is your stance on privatization of government services?
Michael, how long will they have on this?
90 seconds.
90 seconds, okay.
Where do we start? Everybody hear the question?
Yeah, privatization of government services.
Yes.
I think that there's a place for it, but as we've seen, we have no oversight. So ultimately what it becomes is a bureaucracy that ends up putting millions of dollars into privatized industry's hands. I do think that there is a route that some things are more efficient, but unfortunately, because we have essentially gotten rid of all of our oversight boards, or the oversight boards that we do have, we've just put executives directly in there. So instead of draining the swamp, we've kind of just made a, for lack of a better term, high-speed rail between the two. And so, I do think there's a place for it, but in general, no. I don't think it's the best practice, and especially with the amount of corruption we have in our current government.
Privatization of government services really leads to a lot of corruption. We look at our privatized prisons. Who wants people to get arrested and go to jail? Well, the privatized prisons do. Who wants to make sure that people don't have an opportunity? And who are the people that want people to have really high penalties for really small crimes? You look at what's happening at the border right now with these privatized detention facilities, they call them. These folks want anybody and everybody to get arrested. Anyone who's coming over, they want them to be detained. They don't want the funding to go to judges. They want the funding to go to them. And they do that by keeping these entities in power, by giving this money to legislators, to anybody who's in there making these decisions. So privatizing government services leads to a lot of corruption, and that needs to stop. That's a lot of what is wrong with our institutions.
I think this is a direct question to our, one of our largest government employees, and that's the employers, I should say, which is the United States Postal Service. We can see that is under attack right now, privatizing the Postal Service. And I believe that, I stand with the letter carriers. I don't believe that their jobs need to be privatized. They need the support. It is written in the Constitution. One of the first things that was written in the Constitution was to provide for a postal service for the United States. So I stand with the letter carriers. I do not believe in privatization of the United States Postal Service.
Okay, thank you. So the next question, if you are not the Democratic nominee, Will you endorse the nominee and urge your supporters to support the Democratic nominee?
Well, I hope that I am obviously the nominee, and I hope that my fellow candidates will support our campaign.
That isn't the question.
So you know, I believe that we should all support each other. This is a huge united effort. Everyone here came and showed up because everybody wants Nunes out of office. It's going to take all of us to get there and to defeat Devin Nunes. This is a monster in the office that has raised a monster amount of money and doing the craziest things like suing a cow to raise the funds. It's very true. And we need to get together. And the sooner the better. If we can get together beforehand and get behind one candidate, that would be great. But last year, let my record speak for itself. Last year, I ran. And when I didn't make it past the primary, immediately the day afterwards, I went on Facebook where I have 12,000 followers. I immediately put up an endorsement of Andrew Jans. During the election and the campaign that went on, I made a video for people to get out and vote, and I endorsed Andrew. I even put on there to say, vote for Andrew. And I even showed my ballot as I placed my vote, and I voted for Andrew. It was very important that we have to stick together and do this. And as if any one of us, when I'll say for myself, when I make it through primary, I will be calling you and asking you to walk with me, and if you can. We need to work together, and we need to do our best to win this race.
That answer. Look, our job is to move this country forward. I would absolutely support whoever the eventual nomination is. I've been hesitant. I've thought about this question a lot because ultimately, like I've said, we don't need incremental change. We need change now. The problem is with someone like our current incumbent, if we do not get him out now, regardless of who our president is, it just sets precedent for more things to be screwed up down the road. And all he'll do is continue to pander to the right and do these things that are ultimately adverse to the general population. So I would absolutely endorse any candidate sitting at this table, unless some Green Party person throws their hat in the ring as well. But absolutely, I mean, at the end of the day, the point is to move the country forward, and I truly believe that all three candidates up here have that in their heart.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a high degree of new energy among citizens who previously were not involved in politics. How do you plan to engage and leverage this new energy?
Yeah, well, I think the majority of the people here worked on the Jans campaign, and I think that he had a key role in kind of revitalizing everyone's interest in politics, specifically in this area. I know we had the blue wave, but without a candidate like Jans and the amount of money that came in, I don't think that this area would be as engaged as we are right now. One of the things that I think that I have to my advantage is that the fact that I am a younger candidate, that we should be able to hopefully get the millennial vote out, the millennial and Gen Z vote out. That's why I keep hitting climate change so hard. A lot of people have told me to kind of cool it, but look, at the end of the day, we're not going to have a planet left if we don't fix it. You need someone with some skin in the game. And ultimately, I'd like to have children one day, and I can't do that with the current state of the planet. So, and I know that a lot of people in my generation feel that way. So if you're not championing items that people want to hear about, I know, and not to disparage anyone here, I hear a lot of the vote blue no matter who. Look, people in this room might feel that way, but true swing voters, not people who swing left or right, but people who vote or don't vote, you need to talk about the issues that are important to them. And that's something like Medicare for All or the climate crisis that we're currently in.
So politicians like Congressman Devin Nunes has completely sucked all the air out of the room for any excitement towards voting because a lot of people feel they don't have a voice. We need to include everybody. Throughout the campaign last time when I talked to different individuals and I talked to different people, it really is about showing up. It is. It's about being there in the community, engaged with the community, not just with folks who are already voting all the time and already engaged that way. It's about engaging with these new voters. It's about creating new voters. It's about getting out to the schools, meeting with the parents. It's about communicating with those community leaders there. I've opened up the doors. I've asked everybody, please, if you have a community event, I would love to be there. I would love to engage with those folks that have people that are with them all the time, because we need to get as many people out to vote. In Tulare County, we have 62% of the eligible voters registered. We need to get it to 80%, which is the state average. When we do that, that's 50,000 new voters. I can guarantee you, 50,000 of those new voters, the majority of them are going to be Democrat. And we can change those numbers, and we can get them engaged, and we can get them all to vote, as long as whoever is the candidate can work with them, can gain their trust. And that's what is important. That message needs to go out. It's not just about hearing, but it's seeing. In a lot of our minority communities, that's what matters. Showing up is what really matters, and I promise you, I will show up. You call me, you let me know, I will work. I've worked all my life, I will continue to do that.
The new engaged voters, the new voters here in the Central Valley, the sleeping giant, if you will, in this district, are the Hispanic population, are the Latinos. We saw that last year, Andrew lost by 12,107 votes, mostly in Tulare County. That's where he failed to pick up those votes. Those are heavily minority Latino communities. I believe that my story of being a Hispanic, grandson of an immigrant, will be able to energize that community to come out and vote. It is a historic election. To have, we are now, as Latinos, the majority in the district. We are the minority majority in the district. And I believe getting them to come out is going to be the key factor for anyone who ends up in the primary against Devin Nunes. And I believe that my campaign, that we will have the resources to engage those communities, to tell my story door to door to those communities, and get them energized to come out and vote. Those who normally will not will come out and vote, because they will see a lot of my story, what we're able to portray in being able to come out and recognizing it is a historic election to have a Latino representative for District 22 in the United States Congress.
Okay. The next question, how do you think you can empower youth or college students to vote, as they are one of the lowest voting demographics?
Well, I think, I hear about it every day. My wife is a teacher out at Reedley College. She teaches Spanish out at Reedley College. And she hears about it every day. She tries to engage them and make sure that they are registered to vote. She did that all of last year. Before I announced my candidacy, we were making sure that they were out there and making sure they're voting. So I believe that having the new the Voters' Choice Act here in the Central Valley or in Fresno County, and hopefully having those voting centers on the campuses of Fresno State, Fresno City College, and Reedley College is going to go a long way in attracting younger voters. And I will be there alongside my wife in Reedley, not only in Reedley, but at Fresno State, to get those voters out to register and then to actually vote.
When I was young, when I was 18 years old to 20 years old, I didn't really care to vote. I was not inspired to do so because, all the older folks or anyone in any power didn't care to listen to me. I wasn't right, I was wrong, I was too naive. As I walked and I'm talking to different folks, when I sat down with the young Democrats, I listened, because that's what's important. I think a lot of the ideas I had back then are the same ideas I have now. Nothing's changed, and you gotta give them respect. Just like with any community, it's engagement. To let people understand, we are all people. We all learn together, we'll make mistakes together, we'll move forward together, and so it's just being able to create that relationship. So what has been working for me as of late, I let people know, I used to be a breakdancer. It works in high school and some of our college folks. In fact, if you go to Fresno State, you'll notice that one of my old breakdancing crews that I started here is now in the library. It's for anything to be recognized for, not running for Congress or clinics, it's breakdancing. But that has worked. That has opened up the doors to be able to hold these events with our different communities, and especially our young minds, and to include them in the conversation. Again, it's about including all of us. You make the ask, you include, we will get participation.
Quick question, did you go to Fresno State as well?
I did.
I think one of the things we could do is probably have a town hall at Fresno State, because I think this would probably be the first time we got 3 Fresno State Bulldogs up here running for Congress. So I think that'd be if you're not talking about issues that they care about, they're not going to vote. I'm part of this generation that grew up that ultimately couldn't tell the difference between Republicans or Democrats. It's been easier since 2016, don't worry. But ultimately, it is felt that both sides only care about corporate interests. And unless you are meeting them where they are and they can tell that you are sincere, you're not going to get that vote. Look, I don't think I can just get the millennial vote because I am a millennial. I know that because I wouldn't just vote for someone because they're my age. I'm going to vote on issues, and I think that the majority of my generation only votes on issues. And like I said, I mean, you have to meet people where they are. The climate crisis is the biggest thing that's happening right now that my generation cares about, that Gen Z cares about. I've seen the head nods that baby boomers care about, right? I mean, this is an existential threat to our existence. And unless we are talking to them about the climate crisis, about Medicare for all, about things that actually impact their lives, like student loan debt, we're not going to get that vote. Those are the
15.
earned votes. Those are the ones that we have to get out there. And because guess what? They're not going to open the door when you knock on it. They're not. These are the hardest votes to get because they are the hardest to get to. And that's why, look, I've been doing AMAs on Reddit, right? I mean, it's things like this. You got to be tactical in this.
Okay. Okay, next question. Medicare Advantage plans are a way to privatize Medicare. Would you support ending these in Medicare for all?
Yes, I believe that the only privatization that should happen in a Medicare for all system would be for cosmetic or elective surgery. Once again, my biggest thing with Medicare for all is taking the for-profit out of it. I believe that nurses and doctors should be continued to pay appropriately. Actually, they should be paid more than they're currently getting. But at the end of the day, there shouldn't be a for-profit angle from third-party sellers.
So Medicare Advantage plan is kind of exactly how we run Medi-Cal in California. We have Medi-Cal as a single payer Medicaid system, but then that Medicaid system does a payout to people like Anthem Blue Cross, HealthNet, to United Healthcare. It depends on which county you're in. So there's a a way for them to get into the private industry, but the control that we have is that there's a finite price that they get. They have to be able to provide the best health care possible in that finite price. They don't get to go, okay, we're gonna profit by charging more, which is what they're doing now. Right now they're hiding costs from you so they can charge more. The pharmaceutical companies are doing exactly the same thing. So moving to Medicare for all, it hasn't banned things like Medicare Advantage or anything that's called an IPA or any kind of managed care plan. That still is up in the air to see if it can go. We have to do the very best to ensure that private profiteering cannot damage the kind of quality health care that we all deserve as Americans here. So we have to be able to do that. So in the first step foremost, I'd love to entertain Medicare for all without the private industry getting involved, but that is an option that could be on the table later on down the line, which is not fully explained yet in the Medicare for all plans that have been proposed.
Okay, just want to make sure. Sorry. Medicare for all, obviously, my goal is to get to Congress in order to have this conversation. That is my goal, in order to get to that conversation about Medicare for all or universal health care. So that's where I stand right now. I don't know the legislation behind it. I don't know if there is any piece of legislation on this question, but that is my goal is to get to Congress in order to look at the different options when it comes to providing people with affordable health care.
Okay. The next question. Bernie Sanders said that he supports allowing union-negotiated private health insurance to continue under his Medicare for All plan. Do you agree with this position?
I agree. I believe that it is the right of the collective bargaining unit to decide their own Medicare or medical options or health benefit options when it comes to whatever benefits that they do provide.
Can I hear the question again?
Sure. Bernie Sanders said that he supports allowing union-negotiated private health insurance to continue under his Medicare for All plan. Do you agree with this position?
Right, so from my understanding of what Bernie Sanders had agreed to, because the bills for Medicare for All make it pretty much illegal for any competing private industry to compete against what is medically necessary. However, the unions will still have the bargaining power to be able to provide the extra things that are not covered under the Medicare for All plans. I'll give you an example. Some of us don't like to take a bunch of pills, or some of us don't like to take a lot of things, and you can get them all combined, let's say for antibiotics and a Z-Pack. That might not be covered under Medicare for All, but the union should be able to negotiate with private health plans that exist for those extra things. There are a lot of different services that won't be medically necessary or covered under a formulary under Medicare for All as it is today under Medicare. Those extra services are kind of concierge services. They do go beyond services of cosmetic care, okay? There are different things that are there that can be covered by this private industry, and the union should have the capability and ability to negotiate with employers the need for those extra services for the employees and represented individuals.
So my answer is this. I don't believe that there should be, I don't believe your socioeconomic standing should be tied to the amount of health care that you get. I believe my definition of Medicare for All means Medicare for all. Whatever health support that you need would be covered under this. You brought up a great point. So that's what Bobby said is what Bernie was talking about when he said that. My vision for Medicare for All would not have a place for that, because basically there would be no extra that you would be paying for, unless you wanted to negotiate, like I said, on elective surgery or something along those lines. So that's my response to that.
Okay. The next one's a fun one. Who are your top 3 campaign donors?
My top 3 campaign donors. Let's see. One partner that I worked for at PwC. My girlfriend Sarah. And myself.
Yes, it's my favorite donors are going to be anyone who actually donates to the campaign. I know it may sound cheesy, but to all those that are willing to give anything and every effort to make change here in the Valley, those are my favorite donors, and I can't pick. I mean, I love all my family that donated. I love all my friends that donated, but anyone who's willing to make that change. And I tell you, there are times when I've gotten donations, and even now, when I feel that they may have been donating too much. You know, it's heartwarming and sad when someone gives me a $20 check and they are on WIC and they're getting assistance, but they believe in me so much that they're giving me all that they can. I can't say that's my favorite donor, because I wish they wouldn't have to. I really do want to get money out of the politics there. It shouldn't be there. I'd love to end Citizens United. You know, there's a lot of things there that I just want to get rid of. So to target 3 donors, I can't do. Anyone who donates, thank you so much.
My top donors are right here in the Central Valley, and then the 22nd District. I would say those are my top donors.
Okay.
I
don't think that's what the question is.
I don't
Okay.
have any.
I think it was tied to money.
Yeah.
I don't have
Amounts.
any. I don't have any.
That's gonna do the most.
I don't have any specific. I don't know any specific names. But my favorite ones are coming right here from the Central Valley.
Okay. The next question. If you win the Democratic nomination, what is your plan for how you will defeat Devin Nunes?
Well, obviously you have to have you have to come as much. You have to get close to him as far as fundraising. Obviously, you know, you're not going to be able to win this. You're not going to be able to win this seat. You're not going to be able to get your message out there if you don't have the support, if you don't have the resources, and if you don't have the campaign to do it. So that, I think, my biggest goal right now, and up into the primary and through it, is going to make sure that we have the campaign to do it, that we have the resources to do it, and we do have a strategy to do it. And as I said before, you know, my story of being from the Central Valley, being Hispanic, which again is now the majority in the 22nd District, I believe is a winning strategy to get out there and let those communities know, who usually sit on the sidelines, who feel marginalized by this administration and by this representative, that they do have a choice that looks like them, that's going to go to Congress every day to fight for them.
After primary, the effort continues to be the same. Is to continue working with the different communities, is to continue engage, is to continue to work with the Latino leaders that I've already been working with right now and have been endorsed, people like SB Sandoval or Dr. Perla Soria from Lindsay, to work with John Leal from States Community Center College District, to work with the different individuals and leaders that have advocated for the Latino community over and over and over again. And I will join that group and continue to be part of that group and engage with absolutely everybody out there. That is what we're going to do, to register as many people as possible so we can flip the numbers and engage to make sure we have voter turnout. Without voter turnout, we can't win. And it's going to be asking each and every one of you to please participate. If you can give a day or two and walk and participate and do this and engage with the communities with as many events as possible, this is what's going to be important, because we have to gain everyone's trust. And what I've done so far is to do my very best to gain the trust of the leadership, the trust of those that have mentored folks in the advocacy groups out there that are for the communities that are unheard of, that are not heard right now, for the communities that are not yet voters. We need to concentrate on our low propensity voters, and we need to bring new ones. And that's what we're going to do, and a lot of that effort is going to be pointed in that direction. That's the only way to win.
Yeah, so I think if you are planning to defeat Devin Nunes with identity politics, that's a recipe to lose. Look, this is how you win. You shake hands. What you have with me is a dedicated candidate. I quit my full-time job to make this run. I own an auto repair shop that luckily does well. But at the end of the day, you have to knock on every single door. You have to be the person there, okay? A lot of these people have never met a candidate. I know when I do my cold calling to people in the district, they get so excited that look, I'm no one special, all right? I'm just someone who's trying to change the country, okay? But when you make these calls, they get so excited that someone actually took the time out of their day to talk to them. I really think that there is a disconnect with, people running and our politicians in general, with the general population. You know, we live in this bubble of engaged voters in this room. The majority of people are not us, okay? The majority of people want someone for a reason to vote. And that's what you have to give them. You have to be an inspiring candidate that speaks to them on the issues, that meets them where they are, and gets them to get to the poll and put your name down on the ballot so that you can finally beat Devin Nunes.
Okay, so what are your plans to help Visalia and Tulare County?
That was me. So Cam, was that your question? Look, my time out in Tulare and Visalia has been great. I think it's a great small town, but unfortunately it has one of the highest poverty rates in California. I believe that bringing higher education there and increased funding for education is the recipe for success in that area. At the end of the day as well, we need to make Visalia feel like they're part of the district, I think. We have this disconnect of South Valley and North Valley. We're all in District 22 together, and you touched on the registered voter count, 62%. That's 62% of registered, right? How many of those actually vote? And so it starts with making sure that they feel like they're a part of the community. And from there, Fresno has a lot of great stuff. Let's start building a community, right?
And again, Visalia ended dead last on, per capita those with high school diplomas. Fresno ended in top 10 of dead last. That's how I talked earlier about how we're going to bring funding here, leveraging the resources that are already there, getting our fair share through the appropriations and being able to get that. And those are movements that are happening, and getting elected, I will continue to harp on that. And in order to do that, we also have to ensure that when I get that money there, I do want to make sure that it's spent right, that it goes to the different communities and things are concentrated on. So when we talk about Tulare, when we talk about those areas, we need to ensure that the money comes there to help with the education. We need to make sure that places like East Orosi, where they can't drink the tap water, they get a system that allows them to drink the tap water, right? So they don't have to worry about children running in the front yard and getting thirsty and pulling out the hose and drinking from it. It's very scary when you're there. And so those are things that we're going to work on for there. In order to win, and what we have to do is engage with the voters. And I'll tell you what's very surprising is the rural areas like Woodlake, Dinuba, Orosi, Orange Cove. Guess what? They're all blue.
15.
We're not blue in Visalia and Tulare. So we need to work there in those areas and register people to vote. And you do that by working with the leaders. I've gotten the endorsement of Mayor Segala. I've gotten the endorsement of Mayor Gomez and City Council Member Ruben Marcareno and a bunch of other individuals there. Working with the leaders, showing that you can work with them, getting the trust of them and the people who voted for them is a great place to start.
How you help Visalia and Tulare is having a representative who's present. That's where it starts. That's literally what we have to do. We have a representative right now who just doesn't show up. He doesn't hold town halls. You know, I'm gonna be there. I'm invested in this community. I live in the 22nd. You can find me out. You can find me out at stores that you guys shop at. You're gonna see me around. It starts with having a representative who is present and invested in this community. We cannot do anything until that happens. And when I'm elected to Congress, that's what you're gonna see. You're gonna see me in Visalia. You're gonna see me in Tulare. We're gonna hold town halls. Imagine that. In Visalia and Tulare. That's where it starts. It starts with having a congressman who is present, invested, and is gonna be working every day because he has nowhere else to go except for his district when he comes home. And so I have to work hard. I have to make sure that I win that seat again 2 years later if I want to really make a change in Tulare and Visalia.
Okay. So would you support eliminating the cap on Social Security contributions to make sure the program can cover full benefits in the future?
I don't know whose question that was, but Jesus, okay.
Well, it was mine, and
Current cap is
there hasn't been anything about Social Security.
Yeah, well, obviously Social Security is, I work in an industry where, you know, my clients, they need their Social Security, along with their supplemental retirement income. But Social Security for me, of course, is the bedrock of retirement. You know, I'm not going to be cutting, you know, I'm not going to be announcing cuts to Social Security or voting with the president, whoever that may be, who brings that forward. I believe in Social Security. I will make sure I will fight for Social Security so that everybody continues their benefits how they like them.
So I've supported removing the cap. People need to pay their fair share. We need to do everything that we can to ensure that everyone has the retirement benefits that we actually started. I'm really big on promises. Keep the promises that you have made to individuals. Keep the promises to make sure that we take care of our community, of those people that have been here and thrived and did their part or didn't. It doesn't matter. We all are here. We need to follow through with our promises. Removing the cap just ensures that folks pay their fair share into this program to take care of everyone. It's that simple. It's not a hard thing for me to support. I can't. It's hard to understand why, other than greed, why people wouldn't support.
Yeah, I'm in favor of removing the cap. Social Security is a fundamental part of American retirement. So the fact that there's a risk of it being underfunded is downright un-American, right? Yeah, I support removing the cap fully.
Okay. The next question, would you support HR 763, the carbon fee and dividend bill? And would you join the Climate Solutions Caucus?
So I would join the Climate Change Solutions Caucus, and the only reason I'm going to say no to that is because I believe, once again, it is incremental change. The taxing on it, we've already seen how much money the oil industry has. I don't believe that it would be a long-term solution, if that makes sense. I believe that it could be pretty easily circumvented. Although I do support something like a carbon tax, my point being I just don't think that it would be effective in the short amount of time that we have, basically. So
I would join the Climate Caucus. I would hope that there's people that probably more experienced than I am in it. I love it. I love it. Sorry. I'm passionate about making sure that we take care of the issues around climate change. Joining the caucus, I would do. Honestly, when I look at the bill there, I haven't read it fully and thoroughly. There are certain things of carbon taxes and these things that I am a bit against, which is I don't think we should be able to pay to pollute. And we need to start curbing the areas in which we are violently polluting our environment and move towards something of that nature versus allowing people to continue doing what they do for profit. It doesn't work.
Yeah, I think like Bobby here, I'm not familiar with the bill or the resolution. I'm not sure it's even where it's at in the process of on the House floor or not. But of course, if the Climate Caucus would have me, I would love to join that. I think it's a great caucus to be a part of, especially here in the Central Valley. And I am open to any piece of legislation that reduces emissions in the Central Valley, cleans our water, and but also provides jobs in those green spaces here in the Central Valley. So it's something, of course, that I'm going to have to look at, and hopefully by then it's already either passed or who knows where it's going to be. But I am open to joining the Climate Caucus and reviewing pieces of legislation that help us out here in the Central Valley.
Okay, the next question follows up on one of our lightning round questions. Will you support the Green New Deal and the legislation to move the U.S. to renewable energy by 2030?
Again, the Green New Deal for me, I really enjoy and I really like the spirit of it. It is not a hard piece of legislation. I believe in the science behind climate change as opposed to what our current representative believes that climate change is a hoax. So should I be elected and it is a hard piece of legislation coming to the House floor, I will thoroughly review it and make sure that it does what it's supposed to do for us here in the Central Valley.
I will continue to fight for the different aspects of the Green New Deal. When we talk about affordable housing, when we talk about employment, when we talk about economics, when we talk about the climate change and the environment, all those things that are in the Green New Deal to create a better community, I will fight for each of those. I believe it was gut-wrenching to find that we couldn't pass the Green New Deal even amongst our own Democrats. It's a resolution, it's a vision, it's a strategy to get to some place. It isn't a hardcore piece of legislation that we actually absolutely have to follow. And if we can't get together on that vision, we're not going to be able to address all of the issues that are there. Remember, the Green New Deal isn't just about climate change. It involves so many things about how we're going to run our environment, how we're going to run our communities and our country and do what's right by the people. And so I would love to move forward and approve a resolution as the Green New Deal, but also immediately begin working on legislation to address the different aspects of the Green New Deal. And I think throughout this conversation, we talked about some places that would fit in line with the Green New Deal. And I apologize, there was a second part of the question.
Reducing the fossil fuels by 2030.
By 2030. Yes, putting us on a plan to move to renewable energies. I'm 100% behind because I know it's absolutely possible, and we can't let people think that it's not.
Yeah, look, the Green New Deal, among other things, is an infrastructure deal. So, look, I support it for how quickly it addresses the things that we need to be addressing, but ultimately look at it from an infrastructure point of view. The things that it would do would be amazing for the economy. It would put good paying jobs for the next, 10, 15, maybe even 20 years. If it's like the high-speed rail, the next 100. It helps to reduce our carbon footprint, which is extremely important. It will then, I would imagine, start to stem innovation from that because we would have to be changing the way we are doing things. On top of that, while we connect the entire United States with the high-speed rail and things of that sort, it also allows for us to start reducing our homeless population by developing in previously uninhabited areas of the country. With things like a high-speed rail, we could then develop low-income housing to start getting these people off the streets and start treating them like humans. And from that, you would also be able to generate smaller economies in those areas. So yes, I think the Green New Deal is much more than just a climate change resolution. I think it addresses multiple facets of issues that we have here in the country.
Okay, so the next one's a little detailed. You might want to take notes, because they're all interrelated. So what specific actions would you take as a congressional representative regarding reuniting kids separated from parents, reinstating birthright citizenship for kids born to American citizen parents who are stationed overseas, and preventing deportation of medically fragile children who can't get help in their own country?
Starts with me. Look, first of all, we need to start treating each other as human beings. And this is actually one that I will agree with Phil on, none of this can happen until we get the current representative out and we get the current president out. All three of these are interconnected. And without just a societal change of understanding that each person is in fact that, a person, these inhumane practices will never end. So look, the reuniting kids, you wanna know why that's hard? They didn't keep track of where the parents were. So to say that we can just reunite them, unfortunately, that's one of the most painful things to say, that it's not that easy, because we don't know where the parents are and we don't know where the kids are. Birthright citizenship, I don't know where this came from today, that the president decided to end this. It's fundamentally un-American. I really don't even understand normally I can find the systemic racism of what he's saying and why he's saying it. For this one, I couldn't even find that. It just ultimately makes no sense whatsoever. And then deportation of the sick. I mean, look, it goes back to, if we are not treating each other as human beings instead of measures of economic success, none of this is ever going to change. Look, we can't legislate our way out of a lot of the problems we have here in this country.
15.
A lot of this is a societal and an emotional change, that we have to start looking at each other as our neighbors, as our brothers, as our sisters. That's how we change this country.
So once we stop the criminalization of asylum seekers, then we will no longer be able to separate the children from their parents, okay? So when they come in, we have to figure out exactly how we're gonna handle this, because they have to come across the border to seek asylum. The only reason why they're being separated is because they're being treated like criminals. So we would stop that. And how do we unite the ones that have already been separated right now? Because I don't know what processes, and I don't know if anyone actually knows the processes of how they're maintaining the connection between these children and the parents, but it would be to immediately have a task force work on reuniting all the families. I mean, that's about as best as we can get to go and actually start the reunification of the families. When we talk about the news that came out today from the USCIS group of birthright citizenship, when that came out today and when I saw it, I went to go read the announcement. There's been a lot of things that this president and the administration has been doing, which is saying he's going to do something, does something, but he really doesn't do it. And there's a chilling effect to it that scares all of us to thinking that he's doing something that we are afraid of because it's un-American and illegal. For instance, he wanted the 2020 census question of citizenship.
15.
Problem is, it scares us. People won't fill out the form. Public charge test, it scares us. And what he did today and what that administration did today doesn't truly do what everyone believes it to do. Once you get in and you read it, some of it is still bad, but please, let's not let us spread the fear amongst everybody that if they are not born in this country, the parents that are U.S. citizens, that they are no longer a citizen. That isn't, as far as I read in the announcement, the particular case. And it's important that we go through these things and not let this guy scare us into submission.
These are clearly intimidation tactics, bullying tactics. They're devised to suppress the vote, to be honest, here in America of minorities. And like I said, my focus is winning the 22nd, and it's just reversing everything that this administration has done, and that includes everything that we've talked about today, especially what Michael just said. That is what I can tell you that I'll be fighting for, is just to reverse all these terrible policies that had impacted this community. Those children at the border, those families that have been separated, most likely a lot of them were coming to the Central Valley. They have family here. They wanted to come and just work. That's all they wanted to do and provide a better life. Ending birthright citizenship for people overseas, these people are giving their lives to their country, by going and serving in different bases around the country. That is U.S. soil, right? These are terrible, terrible policies to bully and intimidate. And we are not going to be, as a community here in the 22nd, intimidated anymore or pushed around. It is time for us to stand up and use our voices, use
15.
our leverage as a majority here, and show this administration that we're not going to take it, and have a fresh voice in Congress.
Excellent. Okay, so now we're going to move to your concluding comments. Each candidate has up to 2 minutes.
I think I'm first, right? Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you very much, again, everyone, for coming out. I thank you to Michael and the Democratic Central Committee and the Fresno County Democrats. I appreciate you all coming out and listening to all three of us and what we have to say. You know, this past election in 18 was 5.5%. That's how close the margin was, 12,000 votes. You know, Andrew blazed a huge trail for this to be a flippable and targeted district by the National Committee. And I believe that, you know, me growing up here, my story here in the Central Valley, being a part of a community now that is the majority is going to be a factor here. 12,107 votes, that is nothing. That is nothing. And I think in a midterm where Andrew was able to get, I think we have that opportunity here now. I appreciate these conversations that we have here, with all three of us. I think it's a great part of the process. But in the end, in order to take out Devin Nunes, I believe my campaign will have the resources to fight back and flip this district in the 22nd. So I hope that I can earn all your support here today, and that you'll be able to join and jump on and join our team and really move it the last mile here in 2020. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So 43 years ago, my parents, my family, the Hmong community took refuge in America. Some of them had to swim across rivers and enter into a country illegally. Then get vetted and detained and lived in refugee camps for up to 20 years to be able to come here to this country. We fought, we died, we did everything that we can to save American lives. And we truly appreciate having the ability to be here in this country, to take every single opportunity that we can to chase every opportunity possible. And so many of my fellow friends and community members have fallen through the cracks. And I've seen some places where the systemic processes has allowed that to happen. But I've been lucky. I've been lucky and have privilege to not fall through those cracks. I've been lucky to get to where I am today, to be able to have founded clinics, to have hundreds of employees, and take care of hundreds of thousands of impoverished patients. I'm also lucky and fortunate to know that the crack could be in front of me tomorrow and I can lose it all. I'm doing this to help out our individuals, to help out our community, to give people a voice. I'm working as hard as I can to make this happen, and I hope people can join in on this to make sure and to help us have the very first Hmong federal congressional member in America. We have the ability to make change and history, and I please hope you can join this team of elected officials, of community leaders, community members, and advocates to make this change happen. Thank you.
First and foremost, I want to thank you all for coming out here tonight. I hope you had more important or at least more exciting things to do on a Wednesday night, but you all understand how important this election is, so you chose to be here with us. Look, we need leadership and people who aren't afraid to call out the change that needs to happen. With me, you have a dedicated candidate who will continue to fight for the planet and for your best interests. If you guys are interested in joining my campaign, you can talk to me after this, or John Rodriguez, my campaign manager over there, or visit DariForCongress.com and sign up via email. My name is Dari Rezvani. I'm fighting for environmental justice, immigration reform, and Medicare for all. Thank you.
Thank all of the candidates. And this time I'm going to go with Bobby first. Bobby Bliatu, Dari Rezvani, and Phil Arbaia. If we could give them a round of applause. Dee Barnes and Tom Hernandez for helping out and also planning and developing the questions. Thank all of you for your input in this race and everything that we're going to need to do to elect a Democrat next year. Howard?
Right.
Mike, if I may. I've donated some photographs over here, Democratic candidates and officials. They're for sale. All the money goes to Democratic headquarters. And a short announcement, I think we need to do what we can to support our president. And given how he is so full of himself and other things, I would encourage you all to send him a box of X-Lax.
Thank you very much.